closed, basically some closed pawn openings today. So basically, like how to play against closed, closed pawn structures. First, I wanted to take a look. I just wanted to sort of establish kind of openings that could involve very closed pawn structures. They tend to be out of the Dutch, and they tend to be out of the Queen's Pawn game. Queen's Pawn games, D4, D5 are defined to be the closed games. So that's basically where these types of things tend to occur. Specifically, in situations where Black chooses not to accept this, C4 pawn, like C4, C6, Knight F3, E6. Semi-Slav can lead to very closed pawn structures as well. But we can just basically go through a main line and see kind of where where the pawn structure gets closed, how Black deals with it in the main line, and then we can look at a few GM games to kind of look at the overall, basically look at the overall reasoning for it. So E3, BN D7, Queen C2, Bishop D6, and then something like C5 will successfully close the pawn structure. Basically this is the type of formation where there will be basically Black playing for a break here. But this is like a pawn structure which is closed, and is going to involve maneuvering by Black. If you look at kind of this situation here, right? Black's bishops are weak. This bishop is on C8. This bishop is on C7. They could, basically they could try to attempt to play for even, basically further closing of the center, but I think Black's best option here, Black's best play out of this mainline opening, is to try to do things that start to undermine the undermine the closeness of the center. Things like B6, pawn takes C5, could potentially leave White with an overextended pawn on C5. And overall here, I think Black is just Black will find ways to undermine the center, and things will be all right. Queen to E7, E5, it could be another break that Black will use. But with this closed pawn structure, with this like kind of overarching closed pawn structure on the Black side, Black is mainly going to try to come up with the best opportunity to break this open. So, anyways, interesting. B4, A6. Again, these are this is basically just a demonstration of a closed pawn structure. But we'll see. There will be a mainline break of this, and E5 is it. So. If you're in a closed pawn structure as Black, odds are you've played into it from a Queen's Pawn game. So what I would say is that as Black, what you can do is you can try to, you basically can try to advance your, advance your pawns at the optimal moment. That's what I'm saying. Things like E5 threatening D4. Basically, this expansion is good for Black. So the main point here, and I don't want to spend too long on it, but basically just looking over the, the value of it. What's good is basically that the, is basically that you have this kind of optimal moment to break through on the pawn structure. You play E5, pawn takes E5, knight takes E5, and Black is comfortable here. So what I'm saying is basically that this pawn structure for Black is favorable, and this ends up being the opportunity for Black to break things open. Odds are Black has played into a closed pawn structure from that White has a spatial advantage in most closed pawn structure type systems, but it always comes with a break. It comes with maneuvering. And basically Black's goal is to try to kind of improve his opportunities there. So, anyways, I thought this was interesting. D takes E5, knight takes E5, knight takes E5, bishop takes E5, bishop E2. And now Black has more spatial control in the center. He's come up with this good break. And overall this looks good. Rook E8, castles, bishop G4. But Black is very comfortable here. Black is able to play, is basically able to play with more space than he was previously. And Black has turned this from a closed pawn structure into a favorable pawn structure for himself. So the main question is how to play closed pawn structures. The answer is maneuver well, come up with the best break, put a lot of focus and time into understanding which of the best breaks it is. Frequently, there are situations in which you're choosing between E5 and C5, and you can choose to play E5. Hey, good morning, Lauren. Thanks for joining the stream. So basically, the goal of a closed pawn structure is to basically put the basically put the break on the closed pawn structure in the most favorable way that you can. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. Bishop to g4 looks good. Pawn takes g4, knight takes g4. Situation's pretty good for black overall. f3, bishop h5, rook a d1, bishop g8, bishop g6. This looks good. I guess I would say I'm pretty comfortable with black's situation overall here, and his spatial advantage has not been too pronounced. Anyways, let's go to an analysis board. I wanted to take a look at Caruana versus Carlsen. This is game 2. We haven't looked over this one yet, but this is Caruana Carlsen from 2018. I haven't looked over these games. This is a great opportunity for me to look over these games. So yeah, d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5. Okay, so we're symmetrical. These kind of larger symmetrical pawn structures, this will lead to a closed position, and it will lead to a situation in which a break is probably favorable for black. So e6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop to f4, castles. And overall, this is, I wouldn't say this is in terms of the extremes of the, it's not an extreme example of a closed pawn structure. But basically here, black kind of needs a break, in terms of this advancement. So knight to d7, knight to b6, bishop to d7, bishop to c6. All of those types of things I think are going to be an advantage for black. So e3, c5. And basically black plays this immediate c5. This is aggressive. This is, in terms of opening strategy, c5 is the most popular. But basically this challenges white's, this challenges kind of the dynamic of the game. We looked at the d4, c5, or d4, d5, c4, c5 opening by itself. It's an interesting opening. But by playing c5, black is playing the immediate break in order to counter this pawn structure. So, hey, good morning, Sam Sejwani. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining the stream. So basically this c5, opens up the pawn structure. And good morning, Alexandre. So c5 here, basically all of this is kind of, this is something that will involve trades of pawns, and this will open the pawn structure. So all of this is good. Good morning, Privila. Thanks everyone very much for joining the stream and for being here. And good morning, Anch. So basically in this closed pawn structure, black is then facing off and opening up this pawn structure with c5. So d takes c5, b takes c5, and now this pawn structure is kind of on its way to being opened. Let's look at the eval. White is better in this eval. White has basically not lost the initiative. This ends up being better for white. But this gives a sense of kind of what a world champion level opening is. This opening is completely playable for white. No issues. Queen to c2 is playable. A3 is playable. But basically here, black can do things like play knight to c6, can play bishop to d7, can play pawn takes d5. And once the trade happens on d5, which it probably will, this basically opening has gone from a closed game into an open game in a way that was favorable for black. So queen c2, knight c6, a3, queen a5, rook to d1. Overall here, I think that basically this pawn structure, this queen is facing off on e1, cool. This knight can go to e4, pinning the knight. I guess just overall, this looks like a good way for black to have countered this. This bishop is the only piece that hasn't gotten developed. All the other pieces for black, this involves basically the queen attacking the king. B4, I guess, isn't playable. The reason why b4 isn't playable is because of knight takes b4, or b4, knight takes b4, pawn takes b4, bishop takes b4. And then the bishop gets pressure on the e1, basically pressure on e1 and threatens to win this knight on c3. But I want to go back to the opening here. So, this is setting up for an open pawn structure, or a closed pawn structure for black. But black, knowing that he's going to be facing a spatial disadvantage, plays this early c5 to challenge things. And now that these things are challenged, basically this ends up being a successful way for black to match the center. So pawn takes, bishop takes, and then after the d5 pawn trades, this has gone from a closed structure to an open structure. So interesting game. Let's just look. I want to look at this. Among other things, this is Caruana Carlsen, so about the highest level human chess that there is. d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, and here basically white has basically we know that this is a playable opening. We know that knight f6 and e6 can be played against c4. There's nothing surprising in this opening line here. Yeah, their accuracy is insane. They are about 99% each. Very very high level human chess. But let's keep going. Let's see how far they take this through to theory as well. That's what I'm sort of curious about. Rook to d8, bishop e2, knight f6. Here we're basically, we're exiting, theory by move 12, or exiting theory in the chess.com opening book by move 12. This knight is threatening c3. This queen is attacking e1. White castles, knight takes c3, pawn takes c3. And basically, black has a slightly better pawn structure, but white has slightly better development. White has this long, London-type bishop. Yeah, I guess I would just say this is probably a good way for black to basically black is getting close to equalizing. Let's look at their strategies here. So we're in this game. This is Caruana Carlson. I guess what I'm curious about here is, if you were in this position, what would you play as black and what would you play as white? So, I don't know. It's a tough question. I think bishop takes a3 is probably a move that neither is going to be able to play, but it could be a potential lasting threat. If the bishop plays to d7 and e8, if pawn takes c4, yeah, basically I think that this is a situation where it's up to black to decide how they want to play this. But I'm thinking f6, e5, e4 potentially. But yeah, I don't know. I guess in the middle I would say things are about equal. If there was a good way for black to improve his bishop, then that would probably be useful. But I think that the play in this game probably for both sides is going to be on this queen side. We'll see what happens. I bet what's going to happen is that black's going to lock up this position and then play on the queen side. But I haven't seen this game before, so I'm kind of curious. This gives an interesting way of showing kind of what world champion level planning is like. But a4, knight to e7, knight to e5, bishop to d6, d5, knight takes, bishop f3. But the play is on the queen side. The play is on the center here. Now it's pretty simplified. So black is a little bit better. I think black can play things like rook to b8, b6, bishop d7, queen e8, and threaten on a4. Yeah, and now like pretty much many of the games in this series it trades off into a rook and pawn endgame, basically maneuvers into a draw. So close game, very accurate play. This was one where basically black did his push to break open the closed game relatively early. If black can basically play to open the pawn structure early, then it's usually a good idea. Usually the closed pawn structures lead to a spatial advantage for white, often a lasting spatial advantage for white. This is true in the queen's pawn openings, and this is true in the French. And if black can break through at the optimal point, that's good for them. So let's take a look. Let's look at another one from this is a Joel Benjamin versus Patrick Wolf game out of the Dutch. And let's take a look at this one. It's a closed game. Basically this is another closed type pawn structure. Closed pawn structures can come out of d4, d5. They can also come out of d4, f5. Some of the most closed games that there are come out of the Dutch. h3, d6. So this is this is IM level play in the United States. But yeah, I think the d6 here and white is kind of playing off against some tough stuff here. 98 versus 97, very high level play. But yeah, black in this game, if we're taking this position in isolation, black is going to look up for his, look to points like c5 for a break or e5 for a break. If you can, e5 is somewhat well defended by white, but if you can play for a break on c5 and free his pawn structure, preferably after castling, he's going to have a pretty well-made plan to start attacking on the queen side. Bishop d3, knight c6, c4. Okay. This pawn structure remains closed. I mean, basically this c4, e3, this sort of reflects a closed pawn structure for white. And white's in basically here. There's an error. This pawn structure is still fairly closed, even for an endgame position. This knight has value, so this knight should probably get to a place like c5. But the tactical error that comes up with knight to c5 is rook d1, c6, b takes c6, bishop takes c6, and then I think it should be knight takes f4, and threaten basically wins the knight here, or wins the pawn here. So the f4 pawn is weak. The f4 pawn hangs, dropping the defense of this knight on this pawn could potentially lead to a loss of the pawn for black. Cool. So yeah, overall, white's got a white's basically got a win here. This looks good. Ideas like f3, f7, or f6, f7 could potentially be good for white. But yeah, another win. Basically for white. Black had a good way of playing in this closed game. He never actually played the freeing move, but he was able to get play going on in the center. And again, I would say that the closed game here, queen takes, bishop takes, knight to d4, this is fine. This doesn't cause any issues for white, and I think basically this offers play somewhat constricted for black. I'm surprised that black wasn't more interested in playing moves like c5 in this game. I would have paired maybe d5 with c5, but I guess that's just not what they were interested in doing. So I want to take another look. I guess I would say that, in order for more kind of ideas for closed games, we can take a look. I was thinking maybe another one, another D4 game in the Carlsen-Caruana games. The Carlsen-Caruana games are great. I mean, it's just very high-level human chess. Often the plans are pretty well established. Like, you can pretty clearly see, like, what they're planning to do. And, so here, Carlsen-Caruana, d4, d5, c4, e6, again out of this e6 structure, basically with this early c5 move. Actually, sorry, I think I pulled up the wrong one. Let's take a look at their English play. Their English play, basically, the English is another way that the pawn structure can get very closed. But let's take a look at this English game from Carlsen-Caruana, and I think this should demonstrate probably a closed pawn structure. E5 is the most accurate, or basically E5 is the most accurate way that black can play here. So if basically black plays E5, this leads to an aggressive play for white. So e5, knight to c3, knight to f6, knight to f3, knight to c6. And basically he's playing off c4 against e5, g3, d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop to g2, bishop c5. And basically black's facing off this, this threat of on f2. This is, again, not as closed as some of the d4, d5 pawn structures. But what's kind of interesting here is that this English opening is kind of worth. I guess I would say this English opening is worth learning. Here g3, d5, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5. White's going to have his pawns, and it's going to basically look like the reverse Sicilian. This is the Sicilian with the colors reversed. d4, 5 is played, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5. And white's going to be able to advance with bishop g2, knight b6, castles, bishop to e7. And I guess what I would say here is that this is good, basically good advancement for white. Black has bishop on bishop on e7, knight b6, knight c6, and I guess here what I would say is just this is solid play for white. This is well established opening theory. In terms of themes in this game, I guess I want to see kind of the high level planning on this one. Where does the play end up going? Where do these masters basically assemble their their ideas? They're playing sidelines, which is kind of interesting. So bishop to d2, definitely like a sideline. Or so bishop c5, castles. Cool, good work, Lauren. Thanks. Yeah, chess.com is good. Seems good. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with these Carlsen Caruana games, but I would figure, Lauren, you might have some interesting insights on these. I haven't gone over them, to be honest. These are ones that I've wanted to look at for a long time. So yeah, if you have any ideas on the Carlsen Caruana games, please let me know. I think these end up being good for these basically end up being good for white. Bishop g2, bishop c5, castles, d3. Here, I guess what I would say is just, white's got a relatively open pawn structure. This looks like basically an inverted Sicilian. How does white, can we quickly go from the start? Yeah, of course. c4, e5, knight to c3, knight to f6, knight to f3, knight to c6. So basically, this is the 4 knights symmetrical English, or 4 knights non-symmetrical English, 4 knights, English. So reverse dragon, cool. I'm really excited. This is so helpful. 4 knights, g3, d5, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop g2, bishop to c5, and so basically this three interesting. Okay, cool. So this knights, this basically knights are here, castles here. Fair enough. Lauren really knows her theory. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, castles, d3, rook e8. But yeah, I guess this would be a good demonstration of kind of a Okay. All right. So these bishop, knight facing off against these knight, bishop here, right? So bishop to d2, knight takes, bishop takes, knight to d4, b4, bishop to d6, and basically white's listed as better. White's probably going to get this queenside attack going. This is similar to the dragon for black. So black can play a4, b5, and and basically this play is going to end up being good for white here. So look, I mean, this is basically Sicilian dragon style, where this a4 b5 advance is going to create a long diagonal on the king side here. So yeah. Rook b1, knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, a6, a4, c6. Yeah. So anyways, this looks pretty solid. c6, bishop facing on a8, I guess in assessing this position, where I would say to put points in is ideas like queen to d2 could be good. This long diagonal for this bishop looks good. e4 potentially, but basically white's going to try to generate play on the queen side, similar to how the black does in the Sicilian, and that's going to be useful, I think, to try to get basically that's going to be useful. So b5 playing off against this c6 and a8, I think could be useful, and it's basically a Sicilian type plan played out of this reverse Sicilian English. Pressure on b7 potentially for white. Yeah, no, I guess this is what I'm sort of interested in, Lauren. Honestly, I feel like you've done enough opening study on this that me not having seen the game, I'm more than happy to defer to your judgment on some of these. But yeah, a4, c6, rook to e1, bishop to b7, e3, and I guess what I would say is that basically white is attacking in a Sicilian type position against the queen side here. Like this basically does look like the dragon is black. Yeah, there was no established kingside attack for black, right? So it seemed like white got a pretty it seemed like a pretty good if you were to really compare this directly to a Sicilian, then yeah, I do agree with that. I think that basically there's not much in the way of kingside attacking for black. So white who normally attacks kingside in the Sicilian, versus black who doesn't, right? This is yeah. So I guess that's what I'm sort of interested in. I mean, this looks like a better play for white, and like you're right. I think it's basically a queenside or a reverse Sicilian where white never really gets much play on the or black never really gets much play on the king side, so white just plays on the queen side. I know it does draw, so. Rook to c1 against rook takes c6. Cool, good work, Sam Sejuani. Yeah, no, it draws. It's a Carlsen. It's Carlsen Caruana. Let's look at a different. Let's look at a different English. So this was a good demonstration of the English. The English reverse Sicilian. This is good. Basically g3 and it plays like the reverse Sicilian, like Lauren was saying. Bishop to c5, castles, d3, rook e8. I think all of this is good, but I guess what I'm kind of curious about is what if we look at another English game out of this. I know there are a few English games in this World Championship match, so let's take a look at another one. Here's a second one. This was game. I think this was game 9. Let's just make sure it's not the same one again. But yeah, these World Championship games, they seem to be, they basically seem to be mostly interesting. So they play the 4 knights. They actually played exactly the 4 knights key. Yeah. They basically played the Fianchetto 4 Knights English twice. Let's look at this. Let's look at this other one. This one ends with 34 RBC1. But yeah, so this was game. Just so we know from this World Championship match, this was game 4. They also play this 4 Knights English on, basically 4 Knights English on game 9. So we can take a look at that one too and see how kind of the plans compare. But let's play through this really quick. Let's see sort of what happened. You're right. There was nothing really much very effective for white. Bishop takes b4. White starts attacking on the queen side here, and basically black secures an early draw. This ends up being a fairly unexciting game, but we can look at the next one here. This is basically another Carlsen Caruana game, and Carlsen Caruana plays the exact same opening. Which is kind of impressive, right? It's kind of brave to play the same opening. You would figure that it would be prepped. But g3, d5, pawn takes, knight takes d5, bishop g2, bishop to c5. This is actually the same exact line as they played the first time. So I'm sort of curious to see where the break is and where the novelty is, and also if the plans play out the same. It's early bishop to g5, pawn takes, bishop to c1. And here, it looks like a less kind of, basically black's getting more play out. White has played b takes c3, and this knight has taken on c3. So overall, this is, again, sort of a Sicilian dragon type position. Rook can play to b1, rook can play to b7, but I think white should be good here. So bishop to b2, bishop to b6, d5, bishop to d5, queen to c2. And I guess I would say this, overall position, bishop to d5, queen to d1, now here, it's a different type of game. Again, though, really showing off, Carlsen's strength. It's not this. No, it's not the same game. But it's basically this bishop on f3 now facing off against this king side. So they've prepped the same game. Carlsen probably prepped the c4 e5 line like crazy. So yeah, this basically this will end up being kind of the same idea. This reverse this reverse Sicilian bishop to c1 as opposed to the previous game. Now the open file is going to be on the b file for white, And let's see if this offers white better opportunities. I'm kind of curious, what happens here, but basically rook on b1 facing off against b7, and knight to h4, knight to f5. All of this I think looks pretty good for white. d5, bishop to e5, castles, pawn takes, queen to b3, and I guess what I would say here is that white's looking solid. White bishop can face off against b7. Again, this simplifies fairly early. In terms of looking at these pawn structures, black is up a pawn, but it's a pawn it's a pawn in an opposite color bishop endgame. So I think that this is pretty likely to draw as well. I know that it does, but I think this is pretty drawish. Let's look at where the biggest break in terms of this, in terms of the position is. The best things are ever going for white or black is right around this point. And this is one where things haven't simplified. Basically, we haven't traded into an opposite colored bishop endgame yet, although here we do. Bishop takes f3. And basically white, I don't know if there's any kind of inaccuracies for white here, but basically play can be on b7, bishop can take on e4, but white is looking solid and trying to make some plays on the queen side here. Black's never gotten an attack again, so I don't know. I guess, what are the takeaways from this kind of reverse Sicilian play? Basically this, this play on the king side, I guess I would say about that one of the ways that white can, one of the advantages of a well-played reverse Sicilian English for white is that black doesn't really have the same speed at which to get attacking on the king side. It seemed, from this perspective, it seems like it's like the Sicilian, except white is just basically, playing a really favorable version of black's side of it, where he's getting an attack on the queen side, but black's never getting a corresponding attack on the king side. So, I don't know. Bishop takes, queen takes, e3, queen to e5. But yeah, let's learn this open. I guess I am focused on the opening. This 4 knights fianchetto for g3. We know that this is playable at the highest level. e5, knight takes, bishop to g2, and I guess what I'm sort of curious about here is the trading on c3. Was the trading on c3 good for black here? Well, it was the main line. Yeah, let's look at this. We can take a look at this Magnus versus Caruana Scandinavian game. I don't think this was in the World Championship, but I do think that it was. Yeah, I do remember that game. So. Yeah, no, I like it, Anch. We can add that for sure. Yeah. But yeah, honestly, all of these games, again, this is a super quiet World Championship match. It seemed like they were, both, at least Carlson was very happy with the 12 draws. So these games are a little bit quiet. But I think what they do show is kind of, what you can do in very, basically very high level opening lines. So if you want to play a very high level opening line, if you want to get, hey, thank you very much for the follow, Arc. I appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to get very high-level opening lines, what you can do is, you can look at these Grandmaster games. And what we know from this, and what sort of makes me tempted to try it, is we know that this 4 knights fianchetto, Simul is tomorrow, Willem. Simul, by the way, we can talk about it. The Simul is tomorrow at Tuesday at 8:45 a.m. That should be really fun. It was similar to last time where it was 30 minutes and 30-second delay. But yeah, good point, Willem. But tomorrow, we have the tournament today after the stream, right? Yeah, so I guess I wanted to this is as good a time as any to talk about that. The chess.com group is really growing, which I'm really happy about. Our chess.com group has almost 300 people. Feel free to invite more people to it. Feel free to invite people to it formally using the invite system. Feel free to invite people using... So basically, we're at almost 300 people here. I've been doing some advertising for this group myself. I think the bigger that this club is, the better that things are. I mean, honestly, the goal here is really just to try to get chess lessons to be free. Master level chess lessons free every day for 3 hours. That is a that is a goal that I think will really benefit the world. So that's why I'm doing this. That's what I want to get out of this. And with your help, I think I can really do this. I mean, this club is up to 300 people. This channel is up to about 625 people. To be fair, nothing would make me happier than if someone else put together a live lesson stream. Someone stronger than me, ideally. But I am a master, and at least in the United States, master lessons cost a lot of money. So I feel like what we're offering on this stream is something that is normally pretty expensive, and offering it for completely for free. So I think with your guys' help, we can really get this this broader project to work. We're up to 300 people on the chess.com group. We're up to 625 or so on this channel, just since I saw it this morning. And honestly, and if anyone wants to participate, Sam Sejwani, please share that. But here's what I would send. We can do this. We can basically send this on the chess.com arenas. I've been advertising on the chess.com arenas, the group. A lot of people advertise their groups on the basically the arena chat for the tournaments. I think that's a pretty successful way to do it. But honestly, guys, I really kind of am looking for your help. I think what we want, the goal here is free chess lessons for everyone, right? And chess lessons are usually not free, right? They, usually we have So basically, the goal here is what I'm saying is I think that basically we can make chess lessons free for everyone. Chess lessons can cost $0, so everyone, in places, regardless of circumstance, regardless if they have the money or not, can have a chess lesson. So I guess what I'm asking you guys to do is not to pay for lessons, not to donate. I'm not interested in making any money off of this. But what I'd like to do, if you can, is basically, if you like this stream, tell your friends about this stream. Get as many people as possible to see this stream, not just because it's good to have more people on the stream, but because it's good to, it's good to basically show that this is kind of the future of what chess lessons are going to be. Nothing would make me happier again if an IM came on tomorrow and started giving free chess lesson streams. I think that would be great. But please advertise this stream. Let's see how big we can make this. We're definitely growing. I mean, 300 people on here is good. 625 people on the stream is good, but really just word of mouth, I think, is probably going to be the most successful thing. And if you guys are willing to put in just a little bit of effort in terms of making the stream larger, I think, please tell your friends, please tell people that you know, I think I guess I would say I'm very interested in knowing what you guys think that I can do to improve the stream as well. The goal here is really just free chess lessons for everyone. If we can make chess lessons free regardless of circumstance, the world will be in a much better place. I guess I'm sort of asking for your help in terms of advertising the stream, making sure that we get as many people as possible for every stream, and moving this project forward. Watching video on demand is cool. Just anything that people can do to kind of make sure that this this gets as large as possible to the point. Time control is 30 minutes and 30 seconds. Really, chess lessons should be free. Chess lessons can be free. There's no reason that people should be paying $50, an hour for lessons that are given for free online. And I think the market will take care of itself. I just think it needs a little bit of a push. So that's sort of what I'm asking you guys to do. Like, if you guys want to, I really appreciate it, Anch. I appreciate all the help, that everyone's putting in already. But I guess that's what I'm asking for is really just, if you can get, it's not about the viewer numbers necessarily. It's about getting things to move forward. But viewer numbers, I think, are a good measure of how quickly things are moving forward. So that's what I'm saying. That's sort of what I'm asking for here. So anyways, I like how the group is growing. I like basically we're up to 300 or so. I think chess lessons, there's just so many situations where people are paying for chess lessons, and I think it's great. I think it's great, Lauren. I think if we can move it 100% towards free, free instruction, I think that's great. So yeah, you know, at some point this stream is going to get replaced, which I'm super happy about. I can go back to working on some development that I'm doing. But yeah, for the time being, let's knock out. Let's see if we can knock out the free lessons for everyone. So yeah, no, it's very nice. It's very nice of you guys. But what I'm saying is basically that you know, the goal here is to basically put pressure on the chess lessons model. You know, right now there's a lot of chess lessons being paid for by ways that I think are kind of questionable, and I would rather you know, I would rather that ceased, given that there are you know, given that there are free chess lesson options online. Anyways, that's what I'm thinking. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's get on to the game reviews. By the way, Aphelion has been nice enough to configure a tournament for 10:02 a.m. This is basically you know, half an hour or so after the stream ends, and yeah, I'll stream that. I'll stream that tournament as well. That should be fun. Yeah, I encourage everyone who can to play in that tournament. I think it might be a fun one. Time control is game in 5. Just game in 5 minutes for 60 minutes, I believe. But yeah, we'll stream that too, and that will be cool. So yeah, we have that today. It's a special event, and then we have the simul tomorrow. So tournament today on the channel, and then simul tomorrow. Simul tomorrow, Sam Sejwani. Simul tomorrow, 30 minutes and 30-second delay, starting at about 8:45 a.m. Eastern. Okay. Let's take a look at this. These games. Okay, so this is Suban Budo's game. Let's take a look. He plays against the dragon here, or he plays the dragon. Sorry. Let's flip this to be from his perspective. So Suban Budo is playing the dragon. Against the dragon, what's interesting is so c3 is the second most common strategy here. C3 basically turns it into something that's sort of a Sicilian Alapin type structure. D4, you know, will be played by white. And white will have a good center for a prolonged period of time. So bishop to g7, d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, and then options for black: d5, d6, knight f6, knight f6, and then here basically, so here in this situation, white's in a pretty good position, but he plays a move that that I think is, again, you know, not following kind of the highest level. The highest level idea here, which is that if e5 hasn't been played, the bishop on c4 is not necessarily that helpful on c7. So bishop to c4, knight takes e4, castles, and the black's better here. So basically, bishop to c4 is a misstep for white. We were looking at that opening criteria that we're always talking about. If it's played less than 1% of the time, here it's played out of 0, you know, 0 out of 65 games. Right, it also hangs the pawn. But yeah, it's a bad diagonal, and tactically it's not playable. You're absolutely right about that. So yeah, so the knight takes on e4 is the most immediate reason why it's bad. But also just it's not the right diagonal from a positional perspective to be playing you know, playing your bishop to. Hey, thank you very much for the following or thank you very much for following, Buzzard. I appreciate it. But yeah, bishop to c4, knight takes, castles, knight to g5, and yeah. Yeah, don't hang pawns, exactly. Definitely true. So bishop to c4, knight takes e4, castles, and black is just better here. 1.3 pawns, knight to g5, knight takes, bishop takes, and yeah, hanging that pawn seemed to be a loss. But yeah, the bishop to c4 diagonal without e5, I think, is really an error. So bishop to c5, knight takes e4, and yeah. Now black's up by about 1.5 pawns, 3 pawns. Yeah, and this game is a pretty straightforward win for black. So, yeah, I mean, I want to look more at the opening, though. That's sort of what I'm interested in here. Obviously, this basically pushing from black into white's kingside is good. But, anyways, I think this was a I think this ended up basically being good for black. So so let's look at kind of what the ideas are here. So c3 is, you know, c3 is an Alapin position. If we're looking at the most common moves for white here, most common is d4. Second most common is bishop to c4. But d4 here, c takes d4, c takes d4, d5, e5, bishop to g4. And basically, black has solid development, but white has better center control. This is before the tactics start. This is kind of where things are. Bishop to g4 facing off against d1. That's good. And yeah, I think white's just up by about a pawn here. So this is this ended up playing out well for black. Yeah, that's it. So a6, b5, good for black, and this is pretty well established opening theory. The misstep for white happened with bishop to c4. Again, kind of a one-move tactic. It's basically a little bit of a bummer here. So this knight to f6, by the way, was not the most common move. Most common was d5, challenging the center immediately. But given that knight to f6 was played, the right move was not bishop to c4, hanging the pawn. First, most immediately, white needs to defend the pawn. But they didn't. So the e5, let's look at the two lines here, knight to c3. This leads to basically a two-knight structure for white. Defense looks solid. The knight is developed in a healthy way on c3. And yeah, basically this is this is basically good for white. So knight to c3 facing off against e4. And then, in this, the plans here, d6, h3, castles, bishop to d3, knight to c6, development for black and basically ways of black to challenge the center. Castles, e5, d takes e5, d takes e5, bishop to e3, bishop to e6. Black is comfortable here. Black is playing basically a game in which they have, strong queen facing off against white's queen. But overall, just relative equality, symmetrical pawn structure. Neither side has pieces that are tremendously better. But this is kind of the mainline Sicilian defense. So, interesting. Yeah. So this game sort of concludes after knight takes e4. After knight takes e4, the eval shifts by about 2.5 points. Yeah, I guess hanging that pawn in the center is really pretty bad for white. But from a conceptual perspective, what I'm focused on, not just because this is tactically bad, but moving the bishop to the c4, f7 diagonal, this overall doesn't really help white that much. Basically, black can always counter with e6 and d5, so this isn't the right diagonal for the bishop in the Sicilian, provided that e5 hasn't yet been played. Knight takes e4, taking the hanging pawn, and I don't think things ever really get much closer. I think black just sort of expands his lead. Basically looks like a situation in which black is pawns ahead and white doesn't really do too much there. But yeah, white queens, now things are good. Cool. So e4, c5, g6. Yeah, e5 looks good. Let's take a look. Yeah, so e5, right. Yeah, so there are a number of options. So let's take a look at both of these lines. This is not super uncommon. This d5 pawn takes d5 or d4 pawn takes d4 structure. This definitely comes up. So the two openings here were knight to c3 1, e5 2, bishop to d3 3. Those are all good for white. So let's see, knight to c3, d6, h3, castles, bishop to d3, knight to c6. And basically here, black is, I guess I would say that black is basically fine. Let's look at the e5 line that Sam Sejuani was talking about, knight to f6, e5. This is going to displace the knight. So the mainline idea here is knight to d5, bishop to c4, knight to b6, bishop to b3. Bishop's still not great on this diagonal. You can basically play, I don't know whether black plays d5 or e6, but this this diagonal is not going to be open for white to attack on. So bishop to b3, knight to c6, castles, knight to c3. I guess I would just say that basically white is fine here. d6 I think is better. d5 potentially. But yeah, e5, e5 does put an immediate threat on the knight. But I'm sort of wondering if it's so e5. I'm sort of wondering if this leads to overextension. E5, knight to e4 or knight to d5. I'm sort of curious about. Yeah, well, that's what I'm wondering about is whether or not White's center becomes vulnerable here. The thing about it here is that the eval is still showing pretty good for White after e5. So let's say knight to e4. So knight to d5 and the eval is at 0.79. Knight to e4 and the eval is at say 0.6. But White maintains this advantage. It's going to be about the game's going to be about how well White can retain this this structure, but the knight on c6, bishop g7 looks strong. Yeah, I agree. I think that's right. I think basically with the knight on c6, Black can undermine the center with d6, and then basically Black has direct attacks on d4. So yeah, knight to e4. So bishop c4, knight takes, castles, knight to g5, knight takes, bishop takes, knight to c6. Black's up by about 1.3 pawns here. This if the center gets undermined, it's not good for White. So let's look at the e5 move. So e5, bishop or knight to d5, bishop to c4, and here. Yeah, Black has a great center after White's position collapses. So knight to b6, bishop to b3, and I guess White is just, what I'm a little bit curious about is knight to d5. I don't think the best response is bishop to c4. I think the engine line is queen to b3, right? The engine might solve this down to a more equal eval, but ideas like knight to c3 could be good. Ideas like queen to b3 could be good. But challenges on this knight to d5 I think is a big point. So bishop to c4 is an idea, but I think possibly better for White is queen to b3. Queen to b3, and then yeah, but yeah, right. I mean e5 basically. This is a good example of a modern style and basically how the center breaks down after getting overextended for White. So yeah, queen to b3, knight to b6, a4, d6, a5, bishop to e6, and basically this bishop facing off against this queen on b3, queen to b5, bishop d7, queen to b3. All right, I guess this is this is basically given as a draw. But interesting. All right, so basically this is Sicilian Dragon playing off against c3, pawn d4, pawn takes d4, and then knight to f6. Main line was d5, challenging the center immediately. Let's look at this position. I want to look at some of the themes that can come up here. Yeah, no, that's right. That's basically the point of the modern style is that if the center basically White goes for a big center, and Black gives White the big center with the idea that White will mismanage it. So d5, e5, bishop g4, and here there's just not the same ability of undermining moves. So there's a key difference between this position and the previous position, right? In this position, Black can play d6 and get a yeah. So you're right. I was focused on the positional aspects, but yes, the tactical pawn loss is just bad. But I guess I want to compare this position. So this is basically the main line. So let's say main line here as Black and main line here as White. D5 and e5. Okay, so in this case, I would say that White is pretty solid. Black doesn't have a method to undermine these pawns on d4 and e5, but with the other idea, where basically White volunteers, e5. So e5 here, knight d5. Black still has a resource to undermine the center here. D6 basically threatening this pawn on e5, and this knight can go to knight can go to b6. So d6, pawn takes e5, and then threats in the center, and then bishop to c4, knight to b6, bishop to b3. But d6 will be an available resource for Black in this position. So this overall is better for Black. This idea of undermining the center is going to be more available in the situation in which Black can Black can undermine it. The difference here, I guess I would say, is that on d5 here, so d5 here, black can undermine the center with d6. If instead white opts for the main line, which is or black opts for the main line in this situation, which is d5, e5, this is definitely better for white, and it's better because d6 is no longer playable. So how powerful an extended center has to do with the resources that are put into undermining it. Is my main point. If I was to think about this, right? Like this situation is better for white. This pawn center is still advanced. The pawns are still on d4 and e5, but in this case, d5 can't, basically can't be, or d6 can't be played, and the center can't be undermined. So using the modern strategy, undermining the center after, basically undermining the center after it's been extended. D6 provides basically D6 provides an opportunity to undermine the center on d4 and e5. If d5 has already been played, that's no longer going to be available. So this d4 e5 structure is going to be more solid. Anyways, knight f6, bishop c4, knight takes, and now black's just better. So I really wanted to focus mostly on the opening structure here. But yeah, in the d5 line, black can blockade the pawns and then reroute the g7 bishop using the open c file. Yeah, so that's the main line here, d5. D5 challenging the center immediately. I'm looking at white's different options, but e5 is the most popular. On e takes d5, knight to f6, and then ultimately knight takes d5. So knight c3, knight takes d5, bishop c4, knight to b6, bishop to b3. And then castles and then e6 for black. I think that should end up being good. But yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, if they aren't mine, or basically that's specific to that opening line. Yeah, interesting. Castles, knight to c6, d5, knight to a5, rook e1. I think basically here, black is just comfortable. Yeah, I mean basically here, now with the center more opened up, this d5 is very vulnerable. A hyperextended, isolated queen's pawn. If black can basically free, it does draw what Lauren's saying, and I think that's correct, which is basically that if in a modern game, if white has an advanced center, once the center, if black can successfully undermine white's advanced center in a modern game, that's almost always an advantage for black. Black has played a constrained position often with fianchettoed bishops, and if the center falls apart for white, the advantage will be for black for sure. So that's what I would say. That's kind of that's what the advantage is. And yeah, I guess what I'm saying, basically what I'm saying is this situation, the center got undermined in this particular game because of knight takes e4. But kind of the main theoretical things that can happen here, like say for example, white plays the main line e5. Once black works, and if black successfully undermines the center with moves like d6 and knight to b6, then black is fine, and this should be good for black. If white opens up the center with e takes d5, they're giving up their spatial advantage. Yeah, basically. I mean, basically all the open lines exist for black here. And the pawns are used as kind of a blockading force for black's development. So if the pawns fall apart, then black just ends up in a better developed situation. Let's see. Has this tournament, has the club tournament opened up yet? The club tournament opens up in 3 minutes. Okay, so I'll call everyone when we open the when basically we open the tournament. I want to see how many people we can get. I'm actually really curious. But yeah, so white did make an error there. All right, cool. Let's play Rat Hot Dog's game. Rat Hot Dog is playing black here. Yeah, so yeah, obviously the tactical component is the biggest part, but the positional component is is big there. So yeah, so the positional bishop to c4 is wrong. So it would be the incorrect play, even if there wasn't that tactical refutation. All right, let's take a look at Rat Hot Dog's game. Rat Hot Dog plays e4, c5, knight f3, e6, d4, pawn takes, knight takes, a6. Okay, so this is the Khan formation, and then with c4, this becomes the Maroczy bind Khan. Okay, cool. So knight to f6, knight to c3, queen to c7, and basically black here. I think basically this is mainline, really very mainline theory, and white diverges with queen to d3. Yeah, so this play of c4 and e4, this ended up being solid for white. Black can play moves like knight to c6. Black can play moves like bishop to b4. But yeah, the Maroczy bind basically faces off against black, and that is this is a standard position. What we saw when we were looking at some of the modern Grandmaster games is that they weren't as kingside attack heavy as I thought they would be. This makes me think a little bit about this. There are many games where white gets a good position out of this Maroczy bind against the Khan and against a few others, where basically white's play became about the center, and basically the queen side of the center, the d file. I thought that was interesting. The Maroczy bind, I know, basically involves some delay on the kingside attack for white, but I thought it was interesting demonstrating kind of in modern Sicilian theory what happened. So if you don't play a3 versus the e6 in the Maroczy bind, white is positionally lost. Yeah, I mean, basically, black can, basically black can start advancing here. So let's see, yeah, if we look at the win rates for black, Lauren again makes a good point. Win rates for black are worst in a3. Otherwise, it does look like black gets a good, basically a good situation out of all of this. Every other line other than a3. So that's a very insightful point that I definitely didn't know. A3 is pretty much always pretty much offers black the weakest chances with a pretty fair sample size, to be honest. All right, guys, this invitational tournament I believe is now open. So if anyone wants to join, this is a game in 5 minutes. Felion was nice enough to throw this, basically throw this tournament together. So yeah, I just joined, and if anyone else wants to play, I strongly recommend it. I'm kind of curious. We have a club of 300 people, and if anyone else wants to play in this tournament starting at 10:02 a.m., this is now, this is now open. Just opened, and yeah, feel free to join. Is it rated? Good question. I don't know the answer to that, to be completely honest. Yeah, 1 hour from now, 59 minutes. But yeah, everyone, I think we should join. I'm going to stream it. And yeah, it was very nice of Aphelion to put that together. I think it's a great idea. Maybe we can do something like that regularly. And maybe I can do some things to start playing around with the tournament structure. I'm sort of curious about that. To be completely honest, I've never TD'd on chess.com. But I am curious. What if we just put together a tournament structure that was, or put together a lot of tournaments? I'm curious about what would happen there. Okay. Anyways, back to this game. Okay, queen to c7 facing off against the pawns. Queen to d3. Queen to d3 is a sideline. Surprisingly, this looks like it offers fairly good winning chances for white. But what I'm curious about is what the eval does. I guess they consider it to be best, so that's pretty interesting. So queen to c3 is a non-book move, but the engine is considering it to be the best. It's a little bit superficial, I guess, but okay. Yeah, honestly, Willem, you're asking a really good point. What if we just put together a tournament after the stream every morning? That's what I'm kind of curious about. Or maybe we could just do a tournament after the stream every morning. I'm not sure what it's gonna look like if we like, honestly, I don't know the TDing function that well. Maybe I'll put together a tournament for Wednesday. But if we just did a tournament after the stream every morning, I thought it was 8:45 a.m. Eastern, but actually I should really check on that. I was planning to do it as part of the lesson. I was planning to do it as average puzzle survival score. I don't know, average. I mean, definitely when we were really trying, we were getting somewhere around the 50s. But yeah, I think interesting. Yeah, I like it. I think that chess.com, I'm curious about how that tournament directing works. It always seems pretty automated to me, so if it's very automated, I'm very happy to put together a tournament that you guys can play in. And now with the club at 300 people, it might be a fun thing to do. So we've got 6 here, 6 out of 290 people or so. But yeah, I'm gonna add a bunch of tournaments. We'll make that a thing. I'm curious about it. So that seems, depending on how effort intensive that is. I'll see if we can do that. So queen to f3, bishop to b7, bishop to f4, bishop takes, queen e3. So yeah, so black got the better side of this. Interesting. The Maroczy-Bind formation, yeah, that's good. That's good, Lauren. I mean, puzzle survival is fun. It's good practice, especially at the higher level ones. I mean, it's all it's good depending on how much time you're spending on it. That depends on too many variables. But yeah, Puzzle Rush Survival got to about 50, or I think we were doing about 50 on the stream. But yeah, Puzzle Rush Survival is fun, and I liked that. So yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's good. You basically get to, with Puzzle Rush Survival, you get to basically decide how much time you want to spend on each of them, and then that will be the biggest influence in kind of your score. But I think it's great. I mean, basically you get to play higher and higher level puzzles, or higher and higher level puzzles to the point where you're very challenged. I get to about 50 and then they get really hard, and basically I can't really do them. Or I can't do them as consistently. But yeah, they're really fun. They're a great way to practice. I strongly recommend it for untimed tactics training. I think they're great. Very similar to chess tempo, in terms of structure, but kind of fun, and I like the way that it kind of progresses and goes to higher and higher levels. So yeah, so let's look a little bit more at Rat Hot Dog's game. So Rat Hot Dog basically plays queen to d3. Rat Hot Dog's opponent plays queen to d3. Queen to d3 is a deviation from book theory. Like Lauren was saying, e3 basically holds back bishop to b4 and allows for a bishop to b4 extension against e6. But queen to d3 is actually a very well-reviewed move here. So queen to d3, bishop to b4, bishop e2, knight c6, castles, bishop g5, bishop takes, bishop b takes, knight to e5. I think basically black is comfortable. Queen to e3 can be played. Knight e5 is considered to be less good than queen to e5. I guess I'm a little bit curious. Was there a better opportunity? For black to for black to improve this here? Is what I'm curious about. So c4, knight f6, knight to c3, queen to c7. But yeah, it seems like bishop to d6 is the misstep as determined by the computer. Better for black. Bishop to b7 brings development forward in a straightforward way. It seems like the engine is going pretty heavily on trading off the bishop on c5 for the knight on a4. That is definitely yeah. It's pretty superficial, to be honest. This bishop to d6. Yeah, h3 or h2 is never going to get lost. Bishop to e7 probably is the biggest improvement along that same thematic line. I'm trying to think of basically why is so black. I understand wanting to not lose the bishop here, right? Like I get that that black doesn't want to lose his good squared bishop for a knight on a4. Also, after the bishop moves, this knight is a little bit displaced. So yeah, but I think maybe bishop to e7 over bishop to d6. I don't. The engine seems to be disputing the theme of trading off the bishop for the knight. I don't know. I feel like you probably want to hold on to the bishop here. So I get bishop to d6 and I get bishop to e7, but I don't get necessarily. Yeah, I mean bishop to b7 moves black's structure forward in a straightforward way. It moves black's development forward in a straightforward way. But it does give up the black's good squared bishop on a reasonably good diagonal for this knight. I think in isolation that's not worth it, but maybe it is just worth it to get the quick development here. But in any case, I would definitely advocate bishop to e7 over bishop to d6. The bishop is just awkwardly placed on d6. After bishop d6, f4 becomes a really good tactical threat, with e5 being defended. It also blocks off this diagonal for the bishop, like the bishop gets stuck on this pawn. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's no, I think you're making a good point, Lauren. I think that's the explanation. But I don't know. It's a lot to give up in terms of giving up your good squared bishop in a game that's. I mean, the game is basically becoming more and more open. I think bishop to e7, bishop to b7, d5. Yeah, bishop to e7 is a human move. Exactly. That's what I would say. That's the big thing. The computer line is complicated. Again, like I agree that I think you've identified the line correctly, Lauren. I think basically this bishop to e7 makes sense. I mean, it's like it is a human move is a good description of it. Like basically bishop to e7 holds on to the strong squared bishop, and then in a human line you would play bishop to b7, rook to d8, and push on d5. Yeah. No, right. I completely agree. I completely agree with that. I think that basically, looking at moves or basically you're looking at ideas and not moves. That's the main point, or I mean that's basically the main value of where a teacher's helpful at this point. Like it's not about the moves, it's about the ideas. The moves, the computer trumps all of us at all points. So yeah, it's about coming up with a plan. But yeah, so I would say bishop to e7 better than bishop to d6. Bishop to d6 is kind of is kind of weak. I think bishop to e7 is better. f4 blocks off this diagonal. If anyone is interested in playing, and anyone here who hasn't joined yet, and anyone here who wants to play, this invitational arena is starting in 50 minutes. This is great. We've already got 11 players. We've got 300 people in the club, and I'm very curious to see how many show up for this tournament. Yeah, thanks for joining, Ahmet. Thanks everyone. Maybe we can do a daily tournament for the club. I think that could be fun. I'm gonna take a look at because I think these have gone well. And maybe we can just set up a tournament that goes on after the stream every day. Yeah, no problem at all, Lauren. No, not at all. No, I mean no pressure to join. I just think it's cool that 11 people are here, and I'm curious to see how big this gets. To be honest, that should be interesting. Yeah, we could set up a daily tournament as well. E5, pawn takes e5, bishop takes e5, and black is better. Interesting. So yeah, so I think that e5, basically now with this diagonal facing on h2, e5, e5 basically turns this into, basically challenges this diagonal the most directly. I'm sort of curious about f4 here. f5 I guess is bad too. Instead, better for white was rook to d1. Rook to d1 starts with this threat on d6. Queen's threatening on d6, and then white will take on e5 the next move. But the bishop will be knocked off of this diagonal, assuming that black doesn't want to play knight to e8, which undevelops his knight. So, but let's go back to the main line here. We've been looking at a lot of sidelines that have been interesting. So yeah, bishop to d6. f4 blocks the... I think f4 probably was the best move for white here. This blocks off this bishop. e5 challenges. Pawn takes e5 is an error. And now from this point, I think black has very good centralized play. Yeah, it always spots the weaknesses, but the issue is that you're right. The engine always spots the weaknesses, but but the plans aren't explained in English. Like that's sort of what we need, or the plans aren't explained in human language. Like the Sure, yeah. How about this? How about I figure out how the tournament scheduling works? I haven't run a club on chess.com before. But how about we figure out how the tournament scheduling works, and then we make basically all sorts of different play, like basically all sorts of different structures to it. So 30 minutes, 30 minutes could be cool. Different time controls could be cool, we could try to come up with one that fits on each day. I don't know if I'll be able to make them, but I think that having a great kind of community group for playing chess games after the stream, I think that could be a cool idea. I like that idea. Bishop f4, bishop takes, queen takes. Interesting. So we traded off into basically it was a pretty solidly played game actually. I don't think there were too many errors. White played a 99% game. That looks pretty good. But yeah, I don't think there were all that many errors in this game. From this point, I think it's basically a draw. And the error was that that a5 allowed a connected pass pawn. So I think of all the things in this game, this I think is the largest error, this a5 move. With a5, b5, and white will get a connected pass pawn. I think best now for black should probably be a4, but this is a big problem. So yeah, so this has come. This game was decided on rook and pawn endgame play. This basically a5 allowed b5, and b5, the defended b5 became a passed pawn. So yeah, cool. Yeah, maybe we can do a 10:30. We can do a 10:30 stream, Anch, or 10:30 a 10:30 tournament each day. Let's figure out. I'll figure out exactly how the chess tournament scheduling works because I don't particularly know how to do it. But yeah, it should be good. Well, there's always human errors. I mean, but it's a very interesting game for Rat Hot Dog. I think basically he played a solid game. To be fair though, his accuracy wasn't as extreme as his opponent's. But yeah, there wasn't much in the way of improvements for black there. I don't know. I guess what I would say is that just people make there are human errors for sure. I don't know. Depending on the context, I guess. f4, rook f6. Yeah, black's about equal here. Black resigns. Okay. But yeah, I don't think there's that much in the way of improvement. I thought all of this was pretty solid. Bishop to e7 was better than bishop to d6. Well, black played bishop to d6 too. I think bishop to d6 as opposed to bishop e7. We were talking about whether this are, the computer plays the pretty inhuman bishop to b7 and then on knight takes c5, queen takes c5. That's pretty, I guess I would say that's pretty extreme. But But yeah, instead bishop to e7 I think is a an improvement over bishop to d6. e5 I think was the best move here, trying to neutralize this advantage. And then fortunately white made the error that swung the game by about 3 points. F takes e5, bishop takes e5, and black is at basically black is at minus 1.6. Queen to f3, bishop b7, bishop f4. Yeah, I think all of this, basically this turns out okay. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, this was the real tactical error. Hey, thank you very much for the follow or the subscription stop clock. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream. But yeah, thanks for being here, and thank you very much for the subscription. Cool. No, I really appreciate it. Thanks, stop clock. Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you very much for the subscriptions. Always helpful. Always appreciated. Never any pressure to subscribe. The goal over here is definitely just to make chess lessons free for everyone. It's not to not to make any money. I'm not keeping any of the money from the subscriptions or anything. So, but it's still really appreciated. Your support is always very appreciated. It's always very nice of you to show support by subscribing and following and stuff. Yeah, no. Thank you very much, Stop Clock. The main thing, I guess what I would say is, the goal is chess lessons for everyone. So, I think that talking about the popularity of the channel is really helpful. Subscriptions are also really nice of you to do. I was sort of considering, what if we, I was thinking, I guess, again, I'm very careful about these types of things. So I'd have to figure out exactly what, how it all works from a business perspective. But I guess what I'm sort of curious about is, I'm thinking like, maybe we could use the subscription money to buy Facebook ads for the stream. Since there's a little, I basically, my goal is not to make any money off of this. My goal is basically just to, make it so that chess lessons are completely free. So maybe we can use the subscription money to put to basically invest in Facebook ads. That's what I was thinking. Facebook or another kind of targeted advertising site. Among other things, I'm taking a digital marketing class from University of Toronto right now, and I guess what I'm learning is how to do different kind of marketing techniques, and I think maybe it could be a good use of that money to just reinvest in the stream. Again, nothing's done for profit, but I was thinking maybe that could be a good way to advance things. I don't want to keep it. My goal is not to keep any of the money, but I think that reinvesting it in the stream could be a good use of it. Anyways, it's only about $200 over the course of 2 months, so obviously not a cash generating venture, but our chess, yeah. Well, the thing about our chess that's a little bit questionable is they don't really like promotion. I guess what I would say is that if you guys can post our chess posts, you guys can do that, and that, believe me, is super helpful. But I can't. I'm not. Yes, you can do it, but I cannot. So if other people are able to go, post on our chess, that I think is fine. But but I can't. Because it's self-promotion technically, even though I'm not making any money. I think it's a little silly. I think I should be able to post on there if I'm not actually trying to raise any money or I'm not trying to make any money or anything. But anyways, you guys can post, but I cannot. And I'm very into following the rules as they're described to me. So I think that doing that it would be really helpful. So if anyone wants to do that, that would really be appreciated as well. But yeah, anyways, that's that. And yeah, all right, we're up to 13 also, in case anyone's not here. This is a yeah, we can play our Archer's asking for a friend request. Hey, I'm happy with anything, guys. The goal here is just free chess lessons. I'm not trying to make any money. I want to, the ideal situation is this channel becomes big, and then some IM replaces this channel with his own big channel. Then everyone has free chess lessons. Then everything's being basically everything's something that is should be available for free to everyone, is available for everyone, and that's the real goal. That's my real goal here. So that's what I was thinking. But yeah, any promotion is really helpful. So if anyone has any ideas on that, I'm super into it. But I think maybe I'll reinvest that money into advertising for the stream. That could potentially be helpful. Okay. Anyways, we are at that now, and yeah, this game was very interesting. The two improvements for black, I guess I would say, two improvements for black in this situation were bishop to e7 over bishop to d6. E5 was the best recovery on bishop to d6, but the real error, the decisive error in this game was allowing white to get a protected passed pawn here. If white gets a protected passed pawn, pretty bad. So this gives a good sense of rook and endgame, rook and pawn endgame play. Basically, make white come to you on this, in this type of situation. Don't play moves that voluntarily give your opponent an advanced passed pawn. Better for black here was king to g5 or king to g7. If you can start putting pressure on white and start putting pressure on the king side with moves like g5, f4, g4, and c3 and f3. Yeah, pushing pawn, basically pushing pawns like that, I think is good. Is a good idea for black. So a5 creates a passed pawn, creates a big problem, and that ends up being that ends up providing a win for white. So that was the decisive thing. That was the shift of 4 points. We can see on the eval that's basically there's a very large shift right here. That's what it was. So yeah, rook and pawn endgame practice, always a good idea. And in that particular case, it demonstrates don't play moves that voluntarily give your opponent a passed pawn, a defended passed pawn earlier than you need to. Sorry, excuse me. So yeah, I guess what I would say there is, very interesting stuff, very interesting game, and yeah, thank you very much for sending it, Rad Hot Dog. On to the next one, final game of today. By the way, just so everyone knows that it's there, people probably know by this point, but basically, this yeah. So let's look at this game. Basically, this tournament, just so we all know, this is a game. So basically, Game in 5 Arena. We're sort of trying out the idea of more chess tournaments, around this stream. I think we could do one of these every day. 15 people is a pretty good turnout. Yeah, if more people want to play in this, we can just get that started as a regular thing. I'm pretty sure these run automatically, but I would have to learn a little bit more about it. But definitely expect more tournaments in the future. But we have one starting in half an hour here, so feel free, please feel free to join if you'd like. And yeah, looking forward to playing everyone. I'm gonna stream this as well. So yeah, cool. Last game of today. Okay, so this is Rosanes Anderson. Were you the one who sent this one, Lauren? This is really interesting. Basically, very early, very classical game. I figured Lauren sent this, but I for some reason I didn't have it in my notes. So yeah, this is really interesting. Rosanes Anderson, bishop to g5. Okay, so e4, e5, f4. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, let's take a look. So this is King's Gambit, pawn takes, knight to f3. Okay, so, King's Gambit, this is a very classical game. King's Gambit is a very classical opening. Basically with King's Gambit, white has an advantage of, about a pawn here. This is pretty big. The engine always suggests an early g5, but I've been kind of curious about this, and like g5, g4. Let's take a look at it from black's perspective, sure. But yeah, I always am kind of curious about the engine evals from this situation. So g5, g4, I think for black. I think basically this ends up being pretty solid. G5, G4 is the most aggressive way that black can play, and I think that this gets the best engine eval. The modern lines, or the most contemporary lines now are D5. I like D5. I try to play D5 frequently in the King's Gambit. Yeah, that's right. The only thing is that G5 paired with G4, right? So H5, G4, and then this bishop, this threat on F4 is pretty big. So knight to E5. So basically, black has a solid advantage here. Here, I think, is G4 better than other moves? I guess. Knight E5, G4 is the best. Interesting. Cool. I didn't know that's what it was called. So wait. So H4. It's funny. I think you're right, Lauren. But I think that they don't call this the Paris Gambit or a Paris attack. It's funny. Chess.com doesn't have this one. I think you're right, Lauren. But it's funny that their labeling doesn't have that. It doesn't matter, but I'm just more curious about chess.com here. Interesting. Interesting. No, I think you're right. Knight to E5, knight to F6, bishop to C4, D5, bishop to D6, and basically here I think black is fine. I think basically knight to H5 can be played. I don't know. This D4 move, basically, this is just it's a complicated position. There's a lot of just tactics here. Look at the next line without the engine. Okay, let's do it. Knight to H5. Okay, so knight to H5, and then this, these pawns are all defended, right? Knight takes G4 looks playable, but it does allow white to get knight to G3. So knight to C3 is playable, right? Honestly, these are just very tactical lines. I sidestep, but just for personal reference, I sidestep all of this. I sidestep basically all of these, all of these lines. I played much earlier D5 and do not. I don't play G5. I play D5, which, by the way, is not the correct way to do this. If we're looking at the engine eval, G5 sure is the #1 move, but D5 is a kind of very stable way to play this, very conservative way to play this. Wow. Okay, interesting. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Versa. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream. Yeah, so this is wild, right? Yeah, let's look at this. This is interesting. Because, yeah, you're right. That is actually a really interesting point. Basically engine... Yeah, no, I wouldn't... There's no way I would have seen this this quickly. king to f8 immediately is considered to be worse than c6 here. That's really interesting. Yeah, it's the c6 versus king to f8 split. King to f8, and then what happens? King to f8, knight c3, and then advancement from white onto the king side, I guess. Yeah, no, it is amazing that they had this good positional understanding. But let's look at the c6 line. Pawn takes, king f8. Yeah, this is wild. That this eval is this positive for black, and that black played this without the assistance of the computer. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, but the king goes to f8 anyways. It's just like, you know, what I guess what's good about this this line is it gets rid of the knight on e5. So it basically gets rid of the knight on e5, which provides cover for the king. That's probably part of it. And knight to b3, bishop to f5, bishop to d5. I think basically pressure from the rook on h8 to the rook on e8. That is interesting. This opening is wild. And by the way, let's just I just want to keep an eye on this as well. Just the tournament that we're doing. Yeah, so just in case anyone's interested, we have an open tournament starting in about half an hour, a little less. So yeah, we're up to 14 players. If anyone's interested in playing in the tournament club arena, 14 players at the moment. Yeah, it's extremely accurate. Yeah, no, it is really impressive. You know, that basically their assessments for these games are just in a line. You know, basically, the point is, are romantic players that strong? And they are. They basically, you know, they came up with the engine line with a complete understanding of this. So yeah, I mean, you know, they did know the King's Gambit pretty well. So there's probably a lot of pre-prepared analysis that went into this game. Yeah, no, I am. I'm very impressed by the way that some of these tactical players can really match tactically to the engine. That is impressive. Yeah, so basically c6 is the best option here. c6, pawn takes c6, pawn takes c6, knight takes c6. Yeah, good question, Haroop. This tournament is here. I think this link should work. Let me just try it. Yeah, I think it's this. Please tell me if that link doesn't work, Haroop, but please join and join the club. I don't know if you're in the chess.com club yet, but that's the tournament. Yeah, totally. No, this is a really cool game, Lauren. Let's take a look for a few more minutes on this, just because I do think it is a really cool game. Pawn takes f4, g5, h4, g4, knight to e5, knight to f6, bishop to c4. Yeah, d5, pawn takes d5. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it, Sam Sejwani. That's much more helpful than my post. Bishop d6, d4, knight to h5, and basically holding on to these pawns, I think, is good. c6, pawn takes c6, pawn takes c6, and yeah, I'm amazed. That is pretty impressive. I want to see exactly how black compared against this. King f8. It's the same line. Don't worry about it. Use Sam Sejwani's line, Haroop. Knight to g3, rook to h2, bishop to f5, bishop to d5. Basically, black's up about 3/10 or basically 3 pawns here. Yeah. I mean, these tactics are awesome. You know, I think I feel like a4 missed. I feel like a4 just missed queen f8 tactic though on that side. I mean, queen f1 is a crazy tactic for black to see, or for white and black to see, but yeah, I do feel like that got missed. There. Why does the engine want bishop to f3 instead of bishop to d5? Probably it's just more disrupting to the attack. I think you want to. I think it provides basically a defensive resource. Basically it provides a defensive resource for white potentially. Bishop to f3 if the pawn doesn't take, like if queen to e7, then bishop to e2, and if the pawn takes, I mean, basically white has a full, white has a full rook to give back. So if anything leads white out of this problem, if there's any sacrifice of a material up to a rook that gets white out of this issue, it's actually a good trade for white to do this. Black's playing for this immediate mate. Black, I think, can soundly do it. But yeah, bishop takes f3, g takes f3, g takes f3, queen e7, king f2. Definitely diffuses part of this attack. So let's just say bishop to f3, pawn takes, queen e7, and then king to f2, and then like rook to g8. This makes some effort to diffuse things as white. So the engine's giving equality. The engine, by the way, is just the engine is just craziness. I mean, honestly, the engine outmatches people so hard at this right now that that there's not really much to be done. But yeah, the engine gets that really big eval. Yeah, no, those calculation skills really are pretty impressive. I mean, it's kind of amazing that that grandmasters were able to play so well. Just when you think about how much analysis must have went into putting together all of these things, it really is pretty amazing. But yeah, anyways, looking at this game, so e5, pawn takes, g5, g4. Yeah, basically, this situation leads to black being better. The King's Gambit is a risky play, risky classical play for white. Knight to g3, rook to h2, and yeah, basically this is this is good for black, I think. The rook gets really powerful, and then white gets kind of overwhelming tactics. Yeah, I can't do much in terms of asking these guys for, I can't do much to improve the quality of play of former, world champion or world champion level players, but it is kind of an impressive demonstration of King's Gambit theory. That rook sacrifice is really cool. Overall, very cool game, Lauren. Please keep sending these in. These are always really interesting. But yeah, that full rook sacrifice, with white, basically black calculates exactly how much the time is worth, and then basically plays a move that secures that amount of time at the cost of a rook, and then it's totally worth it. So, anyways, knight to g3, bishop to f5, and rook play on the king file. Yeah. Great. And great tactics, by the way, at the end. Queen to f1. Yeah, no, this really is impressive, Lauren. Thank you very much for sending it. And yeah, really interesting stuff. So yeah, black basically playing aggressively here, and countering a lot of, basically countering white's, attack, and basically, kind of ignoring the points of white's attack and just allowing it. And then winning with these open files. Overall, great idea. Hey, thanks, Versa. At this point, I guess I would say that I pretty much give advice for, basically, 14. Many people who are 1400 send in games here. So the answer is yes. I guess this, I would say, is, I don't have a fixed idea of what what I should be giving in terms of lessons to 1400 rated players. Overall, I think this is a great game. This is free lessons. But yeah, so just so you know, VersaVice, here's my suggestion for 1400 rated players. If you want to improve the quickest way possible, yeah, tactics only, really. From 1400 to 2000, yeah, the answer is going to be tactics. So let's go through, if you're interested in getting some kind of lesson quality, here, Versa, I think what I can show you that's the most helpful is some of the tactics trainers that are here. So I'll just do one. Do you have access to chess.com, VersaVice? Yeah, I think tactics is really the quickest way to improve. The thing is, you can't do it. You basically have to do it on your on your own time. A trainer can point you towards those, but yes, tactics are the way to go. I'll show you a quick tactics round. This is Puzzle Battle. Puzzle Battle is one of the good tactics, tactics trainers for Black. But I would really recommend, if you have access to unlimited tactics, either do Puzzle Battle or Puzzle Rush on chess.com, and then on the other side, do Lee Chess on Lee Chess has Puzzle Battles too, or puzzle trainers too that are free. But yeah, I would say definitely go strongly into this. So yeah, Haroop knows them. Puzzle Storm. I think there's one called Puzzle Racer. But yeah, I have chess.com, so I stick with chess.com. But yeah, that's what I would recommend for someone who's 1400. Big survival big supporter of puzzle battles, puzzle training. It really is the best. I guess we can close this since you've asked for a. Yeah, no. I think you should do it way more. So look, like this is a pretty fairly matched opponent. But the point is, you can just basically play an opponent and do a whole bunch of tactics quickly. It teaches all of the main things. Like, look, this is a back rank mate. That one was just sort of playing out a defensive position. But yeah, this is going to be, I think, this is a fork and then maybe a discovery. But you can basically play these. You can play these games. Chess.com Puzzle Rush, Chess.com Puzzle Battle. And yeah, I'm lucky enough to get free Diamond membership. I don't know if you have access to this, but honestly, I'm a pretty strong believer that, even though I do play chess.com, I think these trainers are all about the same. And yeah, that's what I would recommend here. I think that this is, this spending a lot of time, an hour or two a day for like a month doing this is your quickest route forward as a 1400 rated player. It's really just very tactically based. At a 1400 level, you're going to be basically playing, more than half of your games are going to get decided by tactical play. So the point is to just get really good, really fast at doing this. This is your best route forward, I believe, as a 1400 level player. Oh, you get unlimited puzzle survival on free. That's actually really helpful. So yeah, maybe puzzle survival would be a better way to show that. But Puzzle Survivor on chess.com is another excellent tool. I didn't know that. I didn't know it's actually really helpful for you to explain that, Lauren. I didn't know what if any of the ones are free. So Puzzle Battle may be your best option, but definitely just a tactics trainer for an hour or two a day for a month, and it'll really help the overall quality of your play. So, anyways, all right. So this is a check here. So the king has to play back. Yeah, I am losing. You're absolutely right about that. King to c7. Yeah, tough game. Tough player though. Is about equal. Strong player. But yeah, so just showing off these tools. These ones are good. Actually, let's look at Puzzle Rush, Puzzle Rush Survival, which is what Lauren was talking about. But Puzzle Rush Survival, and you've got basically chances. You can play it as fast as you want, but you can just see a whole ton of tactical positions in a relatively short period of time, and you can just sort of you can just basically sort of do that. So yeah, thank you very much for asking the question, VersaVice. But I would say the best resources are free. These are completely free lessons, and yeah, you can do some great things using just free basically the free resources that are available, free opportunities. So at your level, that's where I would spend the most time. Just run the tactics training into basically run the tactics training as much as you can over the course of an extended period of time, and it will just incrementally improve your play. The comparison that I use is weightlifting. Like, in weightlifting, you just sort of need to put in the time. But if you just put in the time doing these puzzles, you know, basically an hour or two a day for a month, it will really help you. So that's my explanation on that, and please, you know, I definitely recommend that as the best path forward. So yeah, these are interesting. You know, you can take if you slow these down, you can get higher and higher scores. But anyways, I just wanted to show off those free resources. That's very helpful to know, Lauren, that the free that the puzzle survivals are available to free members. Maybe I should start talking more about those. But yeah, great free resource, great free tactical resource, and yeah, sounds good. Interesting. I didn't know that. All right, so for everyone who's here, thank you very much, everyone, for sending the games. Thank you for sending that Anderson game, Lauren. I appreciate it. Thanks all for that. I guess I'm probably gonna end this stream and start a new stream in about 10 minutes. We're gonna yeah, no, feel free, Lauren. They're very interesting, these World Championship high level play. But we're gonna start a yeah, no, I think basically starting a new I think basically starting a new stream is probably the best way to do it. But for anyone who's interested in a tournament, we're now up to 20 players, which is great. Yeah, I'm gonna take a 10-minute break and get started on this. So yeah, 20 players are here. We can start. And yeah, the link, by the way, if anyone, this only works if you're already in the chess.com club. Here, I'll just link the chess.com club. That's probably easier. I'll send the link, and then I'll take a break for 10 minutes and we can get started. So here we go. The link here is this will have you join the club, and then the tournament is starting in the upcoming events section. I'm going to take a break for 10 minutes, yeah, I think, yeah, appreciate everyone for being here, and appreciate everyone for sending in games. And we have this puzzle, which is this tournament, which is starting in 10 minutes. And yeah, thank you all. Very nice to see you here. Actually, no, you know, I can keep the stream live. I'll play some Puzzle Rush. Just hold on for a second. I'm going to get a soda. Since we're going to start off for 10 minutes.
If you're new to the stream, you can find old... No?
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, this is a, yeah. So anyways, this is cool, yeah. So I'll play Puzzle Rush until this starts. Puzzle Rush is fun. I just needed to stop for a second, but we're here. And otherwise, also, if anyone is interested, we have a wow, we're closing in on 300 members here, which is great. But yeah. Puzzle Survival. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do it. That works. It takes a while, but yeah, I like it, Sam Sejwani. So yeah, we can definitely add that to one of the streams. I'll add it for maybe a week from today. Yeah, but yeah, Puzzle Rush Survival. I like that idea, Sam Sejwani, and we can do that for sure. Yeah. Who's gonna be the 300th member? All right, we're at 300. Reminds me of that old movie. But yeah, so let's do a few puzzle battles and then call it and then get started on the the tournament. Interesting. No, I'm gonna take a break. I'm all right. I mean, it was only gonna be 10 minutes anyway, so I just needed to grab a drink. Yeah. So this, yeah, true. But yeah, I was thinking we could do a little bit of puzzle battle. I don't know. There's some good positions. I mean, these positions are definitely good to memorize. My only worry is that it might be going a little bit fast, especially with like sometimes the stream lags for a second. So I don't know if puzzle battle is that great to show. But let's see. Um, But yeah, so puzzle battle is a great opportunity. There's a few good free or a few good tactics trainers on chess.com. And yeah. This one I don't see. I guess it's the queen h5 fork, right? Um, Yeah, so romantic era games. I mean, those kind of like classical attacks. Those were, those are great. Um, Rook here. Yeah, I'm always impressed at how old. Basically the person I always look to, to think about in terms of like the really high level games is Capablanca. I always find it really impressive that Capablanca is basically able to play computer level play as a player that existed before computers. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know the timeline super well on it, but is it like Romantic is until about 1900, right? Like it predates Classical, I think, right?
How about chess is the opposite of either?
Hmm. Sorry, Jen. Uh, yeah, so here, knight to f6. Here I've gotten lucky. I think he's basically, he's missed two, so maybe that'll slow him down a little bit. It's interesting. It's a little tricky to do this while streaming. Um, but yeah, rook here, queen here, rook there. Close game. Um, yeah, I got it. Cool. Um, uh, okay, cool. So do we have time for one more before the tournament? One more. Yeah, less wrong. Yeah, less wrong. So yeah, one more. Let's do one more, and then we'll get started on the tournament. Yeah. So for anyone who knows, we can send the basically there's a good there's basically a club tournament. This is our second one that we've done. Aphelion was nice enough to configure it, and yeah, there's a club tournament on basically there's a club tournament on chess.com. We can send the link out, but it should be there in a minute, or it should be starting in a minute. I can't send the link right now because I guess I can send the link. Let's see. It's on this club. So if anyone wants to join that club, definitely feel free. And yeah, we have a tournament starting in 2 minutes. I was just playing a puzzle battle for a minute before that started. Yeah, no, of course, no. Thanks for playing Alexandre. But yeah, you do need to be a club member to join. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Galileo. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining. We have this tournament starting in 2 minutes. If anyone wants in on that and hasn't joined yet. Yeah, thank you, Sam Sejwani. Appreciate it. That one looks like a draw, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Okay. Interesting. This one's close. Again. Is it King F2? Looks like King F2, doesn't it? Okay. I guess it was that. It was a draw. All right, whatever. Good enough. Thinking that I was just doing that sort of spur of the moment. No, they're all game in 5, and yeah. I mean, I think it might be a good idea. I really like and I really appreciate Felion setting this one up. Maybe we should do more maybe we should do more tournaments. Like I can set one up tomorrow. By the way, there's a simul tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. Eastern time. It'll be a 30-minute plus 30-second increment, and that will be our second simul. I think that'll be really fun. And I'll be simuling. Last tournament was about 16, and some people got some really good wins. It was about I think it was 12-4. But yeah, it was a really fun thing, and we got some great games out of it too. So that was all really fun. What do I recommend against the French? I guess what I do against the French. Good question. It's kind of up to you. It depends on what you're interested in. What I can say is that the French is, the French Monte Carlo variation has actually worked fairly well for me. That's not what I would play at the highest level, but if you're playing game in 30 or shorter, I look towards the French exchange as being a very underrated option. Okay, cool. Tournament is starting. So good luck, everyone. Thank you all very much for being here, and we're ready to go. So good luck to my opponent. Thank you very much, Arco Deep, too, and thank you all very much for being here. These should be really good games. I hope it's all right. I'm gonna kind of narrate my games here, but yeah, this is really fun, and thank you very much, Aphelion, for setting up this tournament. This is great. I was also actually while we're here, I'll just talk. I'll send a link to the disc or to the stream. Good luck, everyone. Thank you all very much for being here. All right, so I don't know. Maybe that was the wrong opening for me. I wanted to play the London, but the London with exchange, I don't actually know super well. Pawn takes d4, knight to c6, knight takes c6, pawn takes c6. I mean, this looks fine for white, but I'm not sure. I guess it was knight takes c6. It's fine. Okay. Interesting. Let's see. My queen side's looking a little bit underdeveloped here. I think maybe knight to c3, knight to a4. Queen side is simplified. Well, that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm down a piece already. So let's see. I'm gonna try to get an attack going on the king side, but I'm not sure. Yeah, that was a blunder by white for sure. Maybe f4. I don't know. Huh? I know, right? No, it's no. Arco's playing very well. I've made some errors in this game. Let's see. I'm gonna try to get an attack on the king side, but yeah, this is not ideal. Hopefully I'll be able to maintain the defense on this f4 pawn, though. Yeah, no, this is, yeah, I probably should, no, I probably should have played harder on the center. No, it was good, though. It was really good. Black managed to capitalize and win a piece in the center. So good on them. And then now, I don't know how to do this efficiently. I'm not super sure. Maybe h3. That was a good move too. That sort of blocks off my rook, doesn't it? Yep, very good. Let's see. I mean, I have to think white has at least a little bit of yeah, I know, right? White has to have at least some compensation for that piece. I mean, obviously white's worse, but I think that white should have something. You know, this isn't ideal for black to have the king side so open. It was a good piece winning tactic, though. I mean, you know, I need to definitely acknowledge that Arco's playing a good game. There we go. Finally. I hope this wasn't too double-edged. Um, hmm. Very interesting. Oh, this should definitely. Oh, this is definitely minus plus. Yeah. No, I'm for sure losing this. Uh, my question is if white can manage to get any compensation out of this. I think I need to manage my inner lottery winner here or something. It's really what I need the most. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Margarita. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Uh-oh. Peace looks hung, doesn't it? Hey, thanks for the follow, Galvor. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Uh-oh. Um. Okay. So this looks bad. Question is, how bad is this? Pretty bad, I think. All right, we're in time scramble. This is exciting. All right, good game, Arco. Thanks for the game. I lost. It was exciting though, right? I had a good. I enjoyed the game, and thank you for playing. Thank you for playing, Arco. Very well deserved, well win. It would have been a very undeserved victory or draw for me. So excellent play by Arco. Very good tactic winning that piece in the center, and good job. Good playing. Thank you very much for being in the tournament, Arco, and well played. Yeah, that was interesting. I might add that to the stream because that was actually very instructive way. I misplayed in the London, and Arco really played in a really played well to capitalize. Very nicely done, Arco. Good game for sure. Thank you. I was trying to come up with my best opportunity to swindle it, but it was a very well deserved win by you, and nicely done. So yeah, so now we've got Joseph. We're playing against Joseph. Right. Again, kind of, I don't know. That F2 pawn looks hung, doesn't it? I better drink my coffee. I'm like, not really playing so accurately. I know, right? No, it's just fun though. It's really fun. Seriously. Good point, Lauren. I'm with you. This is yeah, this is not going super fantastically for me. No, it is fun. It is fun. So um I guess knight to d5 is probably the best, but how's everyone doing? Has anyone won twice yet? Wow, 3 people have won twice. Also, a lot of people are getting some quick games in. Kiro is in the lead. He's got a few good tactics in. I don't know. It's not. This isn't such an easy position though. Actually, Joseph's got a pretty good attack going. Interesting. Kiro 3-0. This yeah, this tactic that is a tactic. Everybody thank Aphelion. I want to thank Aphelion for putting this tournament together. It was very nice of him to set it up, and yeah, I think we should move more towards doing some tournaments in the future. It seems like it's not too difficult to set those up on chess.com, so yeah, really, I think it's a great idea, and appreciate Aphelion for both setting it up and for putting the effort in on doing that. Yeah, Aphelion, it was very nice of Aphelion. And Jen, of course, always deserves the shout out for supporting the stream and for designing the emotes. Jen's done a lot of great work. She came up with some great ideas last night that I really think are great. What is the open door beside the right side of the screen? No, there's a yeah, there's Jen. Yes, there's a closet. It's got a chessboard in it, I think. Yeah, this is fun. Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty small apartment, to be honest, but yes. I should probably come up with like a background or something. I mean, there's nothing too exciting. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, it is pretty cramped, I guess I would say. But I like that recommendation, Lauren. Checking out that space saving idea. That's a good idea. There's a yeah, I've heard those are pretty helpful. All right, good game, Joseph. Thank you very much for playing. Good game. We could take a look at that one too. There are some interesting opportunities for Black in terms of attacking there. Good luck, Pharesis. Thank you very much for being here. Is Kira 4-0 at this point? Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Good question, DW. First you have to join the club, but it's in the club, and then the tournament's going on live now. So here's a link to the club, DW, and if you join the club, then you can join the tournament, which is in progress. Oh, is it actually? Is there a? Maybe you can pull the link that Sam Sejwani sent out. And then this is the tournament link, DW. But yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. Let's see. Is Kiro still in the lead? Kiro must be playing somebody. Kiro is playing Artur. I think of that in reference to myself, Lauren. I play so badly, I'm surprised I win any of my games. But there's basically wow, Kira's 4-0 though. All right, Kira's in the lead. Kira's the person to beat now. 13-6. Or 13-9 now, I guess. Yeah, definitely there can be situations in which basically you can get to the point where players can play very constrained games that are not positionally good, but will involve a lot of time, and basically involve a lot of time. There's also a characteristic that goes on in the arenas where it can basically be difficult for in the arenas, right? You can get to the situation where you can play games that you might have a win, but will still be take a while to win, so that you'll fall behind in terms of timing. Overall, arenas are really fun. I mean, I think they're great kind of they're kind of great because they give everyone an opportunity to play. But yeah, it's really interesting dynamic between the amount of time that's needed to win games and the the level of play, or basically like the style of play. Like, it sort of rewards playing super fast and super aggressively, unless that playing aggressively leads you into a game where you're not much better, and then you're kind of. But there's a lot of interesting tournament strategy there. Jen is just getting ready for work. And
I love a good tournament.
You're the best. Yeah. Jen, yeah, Jen's out to work. Actually, I gotta run out for 1 second. Here, just 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. Jen is off to work, and I am back to playing this game. Yeah. No, Jen works at a church, and she's Jen also works in theater, but she was going to her job at the church. Um, yeah. Hey, welcome, Sridhar. Thanks for joining the stream. Um, uh, let's see. How's Kiro doing? Kiro leading the field with 5-0. This will be very interesting. Yeah, Sridhar, if you want the link to the tournament, Sridhar, here it is. You have to be a member of the club first, but if you're there, you can play. Oh, are you play? Did you join in? Did you join in, Lauren? Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, you should join in, Sridhar. It could be fun. Um, gotcha, gotcha. I understand. Yeah, I understand. But yeah, no, it's all just for fun. But yeah, the time control is 5-0, which is a little bit quick. But I'm thinking that we could do other sets of tournaments and basically go for the idea that we could basically go for the idea that I don't know, they might be ready. I'm gonna make a guess, Kiro, that they're gonna pair you against me. But uh, yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a good way to improve. A good way to improve, Lauren. Thank you very much for the game, Pharesis. Thank you very much for playing. Appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for the game, Pharesis. That was interesting. Um, yeah. Let me see. I'll have to. Uh, I'm hoping to get at least one game against Kiro. Kiro's got a solid win. He's in a solid first right now. So, um, that is pretty good. Uh, I'm like way behind. I'm in fifth, but I'm many points behind Kira. I don't know. You may not need it. Yeah, you may not need any more wins, Kira. To be completely honest, you might just be able to. You might just be able to just sit there with 17 is a big lead. Uh, it's a very good arena score. I'm gonna try to catch up though. Maybe A4 and pawn takes B3. Trying to get an attack on this king side here. Is Kiro back to playing? Wow, they really aren't pairing Kiro, are they? That's funny. Oh no, they gave him a game. Alright, he's playing Pheresis. I'm trying to get an attack on the king side here, but maybe I should have played knight to f. I probably should have played knight to e4 on the last move and just let that knight on f5 be there. That might have been a sounder tactical play. This is a great tournament. Look how evenly matched it is, and 35 players, which is great. I want to knock this rook, or I want to knock the knight off of the defense of that square. Yeah. Well, look how bad the queen's mobility is. Actually, I think knight to b1 looks pretty good, doesn't it? I think knight b1 might be your move. Roblox. Oh, not sure if Roblox is watching the screen. Luckily enough, some attacks on a2 and a1. This kingside should be this attack. I think will probably be okay. Kiro, another win, 6-0. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Jorn. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I was lucky. That was lucky. I got some very knight to b1. You had a big improvement there. Knight to b1 Roblox. Knight to b1, and I would have hung my queen. My queen's mobility had a big problem in it. So yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for the game, Roblox. I appreciate it, and I would check out knight to b1 because I made a few errors in that game. So definitely, I would highly recommend that. But yeah, thank you very much for joining the stream. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks for the game, and thank you for playing in the tournament. All right, I got a little bit lucky with that one. Thanks for the game, Arthur. All right, on to rematch against Ark. All right, good win, very good win by Ark in the first round, and I'm happy that we get a rematch. Good game. I think it's in about 2. But Kiro's running away with this. That's Kiro's been solid. I mean, Kiro's 6-0, and I don't know if anyone's going to be able to catch him. He's so far ahead at the moment. But I'm going to try. But we will see what happens. We have 27 minutes left. 27 minutes left, and me and Smasher are at 13, and Kiro has 21. So Kiro's got a good lead. It is, though. Kiro's playing very well. It's a good tournament for Kiro. A lot of wins in a row. Good game, Arthur. I got lucky with that one. Let's see. Threats on E3, maybe? Interesting tactics. Very, very tactically interesting position. How's Aphelion doing? Aphelion got a 3-game winning streak. Our tournament director, Aphelion. Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that's right, Lauren. I think basically your different levels of your game. If you study tactics like I do, I feel like my tactics are way stronger than my are way stronger than my opening theory, for example. It comes down to kind of what you're most comfortable with, and finding opening strategy that that makes you basically the most comfortable there. So like if you are a tactical player, I'd recommend open games, and I think if you play and if you're into positional play, then you can try closed games. But that is a really good point, that people do have different strengths and weaknesses, and finding a playing style and a set of openings that match your personal strengths and weaknesses is definitely a good idea. Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree. You can definitely see like Marshall and Tal are the best tacticians, and like different different masters have different strengths, and then they generally tend to steer the game around their strengths. But yeah, very good point, Lauren, for sure. Hey, I'm not even winning. Both Smasher and Kiro are ahead. By like a good amount. So I don't know. Those are the guys to beat at the moment. I'm just trying to catch up, to be honest. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. So yeah, but Kiro's the opponent. I mean, Kiro's 6-0 here. He's the tough player. Oh, well, you're still really far ahead, Kiro. So I don't know. 21 might hold up, to be completely honest. I'm not sure if it will. I mean, I'm not sure if it will or it won't, but 21 is a lot of points. I mean, and you're not going to finish with 21. You'll probably finish with like 25. Maybe King D4, King E6, King C5, King D7, maybe. think I might be all right. All right. Good game, Marco. Thank you very much. Very good game. I wanted to get that rematch. But yeah, thank you very much for the game, and thank you very much for playing, Arco. I really appreciate it. Interesting one. Some very interesting stuff in there. But I am happy. I can't pretend like I'm not happy to avenge my first round loss. Thank you for playing, Arco, and that was very interesting play. Thanks for that. All right, so 21-17. Okay. All right. This is pretty competitive. We have 20 minutes left? Yeah, good game. No, good game, Marco. Thank you very much for playing, and thank you very much for being here. Yeah, that was really interesting. Some very interesting things in that game. Yeah, I just wanted to avenge my first round loss, to be honest. But thank you for the game, Marco, and thank you for playing. All right, Kiro is in the lead. And who's Kiro playing right now? Kiro's playing Joseph Florio. Cool. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. This I think should be all right for black. But yeah, this tournament, 19 minutes left, so that means there's about time for 1 to 2 more games. No, Kiro. I mean, Kiro. I think if Kiro wins, I don't think anyone can catch him really. He's gotten a lot of like extra bonus points from winning like 6. He won like 6 or 7 times in a row, so he's in pretty good shape. Yeah, but you're so far ahead. I mean, this is going to be really competitive. I don't know how many points I'll get from winning either. And Smasher's beating me. So between me and Smasher or me and Haroop, we are pretty. We're really just trying to catch up here. All right, good game, SWWI. Thank you very much for playing SWWI, and yeah, I got lucky. We can take a look at those tactics in that opening too, if you like SWWI. I think basically yeah, no, there's some very interesting tactics and quick attacks that black can get by doubling that bishop on or doubling the attack on that f3 knight. There are some big attacks that can happen. Those open kingside attacks, they can be pretty dangerous. But yeah, thank you for the game. Thank you very much for the game, SWWI. And yeah, I got good luck. We should spend a stream looking at some of those attacks that can come out of the Italian games there. They can be dangerous. Thanks for the game, and thank you very much for playing in the stream too, as well. So for anyone who anyone who's interested, we have a simul tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. Eastern time. That's basically midway through the morning stream. If anyone's interested in playing that, please be ready to join. Yeah, thank you very much for joining, Lauren. Thanks. Yeah, hope to see you in the simul tomorrow, or at least for the simul stream. But thank you very much for being here, Lauren, and yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. So yeah, so the simul, basically the simul's midway through the stream during tomorrow morning's stream. Last simul we had 16 people, and this time I'm hoping that we can get even more than that. So that's what I'm thinking, and yeah, I hope that's good with everyone. But yeah, the simul starting at 8:45 a.m. Eastern, and I'm hoping that the people would like to join. We can play some good games, and just like last time, I'm sure there will be some good wins. So. All right, we have 15 minutes left about. I don't know if this tactic works or not, but I'm curious about rook takes here. Okay. Hero and Joseph Florio. So Hero's at 21. I'm doing okay so far. This is a yeah, this is interesting. Uh, we're about equal here. Uh, yeah, arenas are fun though. I mean, these tournaments end up being really fun. I think maybe we could try a shorter one. If anyone has any ideas for what type of tournaments we should be doing in the future, like definitely please let me know. Good game, Dark. Thank you very much for joining the tournament, and thank you very much for the game. That one was interesting. Just looking at the openings here, I mean, it's basically an interesting kind of two knights versus modern bishop. Sure, yeah, I like it, Sai. Chess 960 is cool. I like Chess 960 a lot. So yeah, I would be down for that. That sounds good to me. Yeah, cool. I like it. All right, we have 12 minutes left. So that's time for one or two more games probably. Good luck, Dan Wilkins, by the way. Well, good game. It's Kira win. Good game, DW. Thank you very much for playing in the tournament. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here, DW, and thank you for the game. We have time for about one more, I think. Yeah, interesting. Nah, no worries. No, thanks for the game, Dan. I really appreciate it. We'll do this again. I was thinking maybe we could take a look and schedule a few more tournaments. For the club. Maybe we could make this a way more regular thing. Honestly, depending on how hard it is to direct these, we could probably do one of these every day. To be honest, if we were interested, I don't see any reason why not. And we could do them of all kind of different time controls and different settings. But I think that could be really fun if we just had this as a regular thing. I like that idea. So I'm thinking that maybe we'll look into that. Anyways, very interesting stuff. But thank you for the game, Dan, and thank you very much for participating. All right, we're wrapping up. About 9 minutes left. Let's see. Chinmay's got a good game against me. This is complicated. I never got that piece back. Hope, I would have played that one out, to be honest. I don't know. I got a lot of pawns, but all right, good game, Chinmay. Thank you very much for playing. Yeah, I don't think I have time for another one, so I think I'm just gonna just chill for a second. Yeah, good games, everyone. Thank you very much. This was really interesting. Let's see if we can set this up for the future. So let's look at this. What I'm really curious about, okay, is I'm kind of curious about yeah, 300 members in a month and 3 days. That's always good. Um, and thank you, Aphelion, very much for setting up this tournament as well. That is really appreciated. Let's see if we can figure out how to set up a tournament. If anyone wants suggestions, here's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to set up a tournament to start at 9:45 each day, and we will be able to go from there. That will be right after the morning stream, and we can put those together. So I'm thinking that maybe we can set up a new live tournament here. So if I want to create a live tournament, but yeah, it's right after the stream, and but let's say Chess 960 was the first recommendation that came in, right? So I want to just see if we can set up a new live tournament here. That's what I want to do, and I'm kind of curious to see how to do this, just since I don't know. So I'll learn something at least, which is always a positive. Let's look. So new live tournament. Do you want to create a new live tournament? Yes. Interesting. So I wonder why it's not letting me do that. Maybe it doesn't let you while you're in another tournament. I'm kind of interested in what's going on here exactly. Tournaments. So new tournament. Okay, here we go. Club, free chess lessons, tournament type, arena. And what do you think? Chess 960? Game type Chess 960. Okay. Chess 960 with, say, 5 minutes. And we'll make it unrated. Well, let's make them all unrated, I think. Unless you guys really don't like unrated. Let's try, because I'm thinking unrated, and everyone can play. Or maybe we'll make it rated. Start date, Wednesday, hour 9:45. And name, let's say weekly 960. And let's make it an hour, maybe. Did that work? Okay, so I think that worked. So that looks like, and just so I know, that 9:45, I think that's the right time, but I want to make sure. So that would start in. Okay, so we made it rated for this one. But I want to just make sure, when does this one say that it starts? Because that's sort of what I want to figure out too. So we have this other one now, but I don't know what the server time is exactly. So that's what I'm kind of curious about on that. Well, I was shooting to catch up to you pretty much the entire time, Kiro. So I think you definitely had a good tournament. But yeah, so this weekly 9:45, I think this is at the right time, but I'm not 100% sure. I think because the thing that I'm not sure about is if you're setting up new live tournaments, right? What time is this at? Time is set in your time zone. Okay, so that's cool. Interesting. So does anyone else have any recommendations for tournaments they'd like to play? Because I think we could do like a daily tournament after this stream. I think that could be fun. We'll see how that goes. But I was thinking a daily tournament after the stream just could be a fun thing to do. What other time controls would people like to see? Okay, sure. Yeah, good recommendation. 10 plus 5. Okay, sure, Versavice. Yeah. So let's make it standard time control, um, custom 10 minutes with 5-second increment. And let's do that for an hour. And weekly 10-5. And start date, so that'll be on Thursday. So Thursday at 9:45 after the stream ends, we can do that 10-5 tournament. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes, and yeah, we'll create this one too. Does anyone else have any does anyone else have any ideas for tournaments that they'd like to play in? Uh, like we can set time controls. So far on the tournament calendar now, in this chess club, we've got three or we've got basically 2 more tournaments on the list. So upcoming events, or I thought that one went through. Oh, maybe I didn't do it right. Hey, welcome, Jack Mac. Cool. Yeah, we can try that. Oh, wait, I think this one got set up for the wrong time. Interesting. Cool. So anyways, thank you all very much for playing in that tournament. You can see I'm going through the process. What we've got is chess 960 and chess 10-5. And if anyone else has any ideas for tournaments that they'd like to set up, we can definitely do those. But yeah, thank you very much for setting up the tournament. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you all very much for playing in the tournament. Thanks everyone for the games. We have a simul tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. Eastern time, midway through the stream, and then I was just setting up more club tournaments that we could do for us. So that's what I was thinking. Yeah, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you all very much for spending time on this. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So I was thinking that more tournaments are coming up soon. So far, chess 960 with 5-0, but I was gonna put together a calendar list of live tournaments that we could do. Thanks all very much for being here. Thanks all very much for the time, and yeah, I really appreciate it. So yeah, so tomorrow is the simul. If anyone wants to play, we had 16 players last time, but a simul tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. Eastern time. Thanks very much everyone for being here. Thanks all for staying for the lesson and for joining the tournament. And this was a lot of fun. Thanks all for being here. The next stream is at 9:35 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, thanks for the raid, TK. Really appreciate it. We were just wrapping up the tournament here, but yeah, thanks all for joining. Thanks all for being here for the lesson. And I was just setting up some more club tournaments so that we can capitalize on games for the club. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Next stream is at 9:35 p.m. Eastern in about 10.5 hours. And yeah, thanks all. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you later. Bye.